Hello everyone, today in this video we'll be discussing the fourth module of 18 CS63, which is about the PHP and how to write the functions in it and what are the classes and objects in it. Okay, so these are the three topics which we'll be discussing. So in PHP arrays and superglobals, totally we have three chapters. The first chapter is about the arrays and the second chapter is about the superglobals and all, and the last chapter is about the classes and objects. Okay, so this is the total syllabus. The main topics which you need to focus are the PHP arrays and superglobals arrays, get and post. These are the two types of arrays which we'll be learning about, and the server and the files array, reading and writing files, classes and objects, and object oriented overview. This comes under the second chapter. Sorry, in the first chapter we have these things which are about the PHP arrays, and second chapter we have the classes and objects, and the third chapter is about the error handling and exceptions. Okay, and the total number of chapters are 9, 10 and 12. Okay, these are the three chapters. The first one is for the first part, and the second one is about the class and objects, and the third one is about the error and exception handling. Okay, so these are the previous year questions, which is like this from the first chapter, get and post. You need to know syntax and example of PHP class and objects. This from the second chapter, explain the following with respect to PHP data encapsulation, inheritance and polymorphism. This comes from the second chapter. Error and exceptions, this comes in the third chapter. And what are the super global arrays, first chapter. Constructor and concepts of inheritance, polymorphism, object interface with respect to OOP, this is the second chapter. And with the examples, the two basic techniques to read and write files from the first chapter, and PHP code to validate a phone number, this also from the first chapter. And get and post, again it's repeated here. The procedural error handling and the object oriented exceptional handling, the third chapter. And for the inheritance, which is in the second chapter, and explain the three approaches to restrict the file size in the file upload with suitable code segment, this from the first chapter. Okay, so here are some more questions. The get and post you already discussed. Read and writing a file from the first chapter. Writing a program to create a class and objects associated with that. The data members are given and the functions are given. We'll be seeing what are the syntaxes of it, and how do you achieve data encapsulation in PHP. Data encapsulation from the class and object chapter. Okay, so we'll be discussing each of these things. I hope you got to know what are the things you need to focus on this chapter. So anyways, I'll be telling you as we go through the topics as well to what are the things you need to focus upon. Okay, so let's get started with the first chapter, which is PHP arrays and PHP arrays and super globals. Okay, so here it's starting from like the arrays, because the PHP basics we studied in the module 3 second half. So we are just starting with the arrays. So as in the previous same as the previous programming languages, array is a set of contiguous memory locations of the same type. So here also we'll have the same thing here, like for example, if this is the array here, these are the key values associated with that, and the values are associated with the key values. Okay, so for 0 it is Monday, and for 1 it is Tuesday, and so on. Now how to declare these arrays, that we'll be learning. Okay, so defining and accessing an array, this is the first topic which you need to know. So how do you define and access an array? Like this, you'll write $days is equal to array, and you have to write bracket and semicolon. So if you write like this, that will be created, an array will be created of days, and you can assign the days in this way as well, like array Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday means at the time of initialization only. If you want to assign the values, you can use this formula, or you can even write without the word arrays, like by using the square braces. If you write there, it will directly create an array. Okay, so this is the thing which you need to know in the arrays chapter, like what is an array and how to create an array, an example of it. Okay, and different types of creation of array. Now if you want to access an array, you will be using like same, that array name along with dollar, as well as what index value you want to access. Okay, and you can assign this as follows as well, like after you have created an array here, you want to assign the values in different indexes values. So days of 0, 1 and 2, you'll be assigning these values. Also you can use an alternate approach, like just without explicitly mentioning the index number, also you can assign. It will assign consecutively one index after the another. Okay, and explicitly assigning keys to array elements will be done as follows: array 0 to Monday, 1 to Tuesday, 2 to Wednesday, 3 to Thursday, and 4 to Friday. Like that also you can assign explicitly. Okay, so there are many ways which you can assign. You know a few of these. Okay, and forecast means what? If you assign any value here, what value it should output, that will be seeing here. Okay, like the keys and values, where are they, right? In the previous one we were assigning the numbers to the letters. Now we are assigning the letters to numbers. That's also possible. Unlike other programming languages, here the reverse is also possible. You can use a string as index values and numbers as the the value pairs. Okay, so Monday, if you write like forecast of Tuesday, you'll get 47. Forecast of Thursday, you'll get 40. Okay, like that also you can do. And multi-dimensional array is also same thing. Can assign it as follows: Monday month is equal to array, and each array you will be creating as follows. Okay, and if you means access 0 comma 3, the 0th row and the third thing will be output, like it will be in this case I guess it is Thursday. So yeah, that's the output. Thursday is the output, and so on. Okay, and the same way you can use the combination of the ways which you have to make the arrays in the PHP. So you can use that for multi-dimensional arrays as well. Okay, and iterating through the array the same way. You will be first iterating through the rows, then in each row you will be iterating through each columns. Okay, like that we will be using. And these are the different types of loops: while loop, do while loop, for loop for the same operation. Here what we are doing: for I is equal to 0, I is less than count of days will output the length of the array, and I plus plus. So each time we'll be outputting echo day of I. I means the ith location, the days array ith location will be output along with br. Br means break line. And that's for and you have for each loop also. Here I can go through it. And adding and deleting element: how do you add and delete? To add an element at a particular index, mention the index value as well as the value which you want to add. And if you want to add like this, a new element will be added at the end of the array. And how to delete the element is unset. I guess unset, if you use it, will be deleting the arrays elements. So 2 and 3th location, the thing will be deleted. So what we have is days of 2 and 3 is Wednesday and Thursday. So these two will be deleted, and the remaining Monday, Tuesday and Friday will be what? Output. Okay, that is for the deleting elements unset. And checking if the value exists. If you want to check if the value exists at the index 3, what we'll be using is set hotkeys 3. Okay, like here it's checking 0 if it exists or not. If it does not exist, it will output this one. If it exists, it will not output. Okay, and array sorting: you can sort the arrays according to the index values, or the see, the two things are the keys and values. You can sort it according to keys, you can sort it according to values as well. Okay, so sort it according to values, will be using sort days. So what happens is, if you sort this array, means the array was in the week sort, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But if you sort it according to days, it will output first Friday, then Monday, then Saturday, according to alphabetical orders. Friday comes first, then Monday, then Saturday, then Sunday, and so on. So that's how you sort the arrays. And the thing what happens here is, you will be losing the key values. Like for example, in the original array, Friday was associated with the key 4, but here it became 0 because it was sorted. But if you want to maintain the keys original value, you will be using a sort. Okay, a sort will be means preserving the array's original index. Okay, so that's what the a sort is for. And here are some more operations like array keys. This method returns an indexed array with the values being the keys of some array. Okay, so it returns an indexed array which has the values of keys of some array, and the some array will be passed here. Array values, it returns the values, and arrays rand will return some random numbers, like in an array, for example, between some range. And reverse, it reverses the array. Array walk will be using for walking from one part of the array to the other part of array. And is array needle and shuffle, it's not that important. If you want, you can go through it. And that's all what is about in the arrays of PHP. Now let's see what is super global arrays. Super global means what do you mean by global? Global means accessible throughout the program, right? So super global is also the same thing. It will be accessible throughout the program, and you can directly assign it and use it. You need not mention the specific size and arrays keyword. Okay, so here are some of the super global arrays, which is globals for storing the data that needs super global scope, cookies for storing the cookie data, and for storing the environment data, files for file items, get for the query string data passed to the server via the URL. These two is important, get and post. So let me explain you what is get and post. Suppose that here you have the ice cream survey. So here you have the chocolate flavor, here you have the vanilla flavor. You select a chocolate flavor and click submitted. Okay, so what happens is, this chocolate flavors data will be passed to the URL. So in the URL, if you see, it will be like something question mark flavor is equal to chocolate, then percentage 20, then again question mark, and you'll have ampersand as well. So what are these things which are getting passed is what are the values which you have selected in the survey. So that's what is the get is used for. All those values which you have written here, that values will be stored in the get array, and that using that get array will be passing in the URL. Okay, array of query string data passed to the server via the URL. Post is just for posting the values to the server via the HTTP header. Means if you want to update your password, you will be using post. Okay, because you need not want to explicitly show what is your password via the URL. You will be hiding it. Means you'll be encrypting it, right? So we'll be discussing an examples regarding each of these in the upcoming topics. We have few more. You can go through it. The get and the post are the most important ones. Okay, so what is the main thing here is, see, we have a HTML code here. Form action process PHP method get. We are using the method get, and we are passing name and password, and we are clicking submit. What happens is the name will be written here and the password will be written here. When we submit the query, Ricardo will be coming here. Uname is equal to Ricardo ampersand, then the second one pass is equal to pw01. So this will be the total URL, and then it will be passed to the PHP server. And if you write echo get of uname, what is in uname, that will be output, and if you write get of password, what is in password, that will be output. Okay, so this is the hierarchy: HTML to browser, browser to HTTP request, and from there to PHP server. That's the same goes for the post as well, but in the post you will not get the same things here. You'll just get encryption. You'll be using some encryption values to detect what is the password, because that will not be displayed here. And the same goes here also, post, and if you write uname and password, you'll get the uname and password. Okay, but here you do not be visible in the PHP URL link, because it is sensitive information, right? It should not be shared via URL, the password and all. So that's why we use post. For that, encryption techniques are used, which we'll be discussing in the upcoming topics. Okay, so see here, URL encoding automatically done by the browser. So when you pass this one, something else is written here. This is an unreadable format, and this will be decoded and it will be shown here. Okay, that's what happens. And yeah, here also it's the same thing. Accessing form data. Accessing form array data means if you have a list here, checklist here, in the checklist you have selected multiple options. So if you want to display all these options, what array you will be using? Using the traditional techniques, if you select multiple items, the last item which you selected, that will be displayed. Okay, because in the array what will happen, if you select this, this will be stored. If you select this, this will be replaced by this. Okay, but you want to store all these elements in an array, so this will be stored here, the second selected will be stored here, and so on. So that's why you'll be using the accessing form array data in a different form. Okay, so you'll be using, instead of just day, you'll be using day array. Okay, here is just the day, but you will be using day array to store all the options which you have selected. And using query strings in hyperlinks. So this was just that you'll be having the each separate page, PHP page for each book. If you suppose you have 4 books here, that 4 books will be displayed in 4 different PHP formats. Okay, and in each PHP format, when you click the second page of it, then that will be loaded from the server. Okay, that's what happens here, and it's very difficult to actually store each page for one PHP. Okay, so we'll be learning more about it in the chapter 11 about making use of database in the most efficient manner. So that's means out of the scope of this module. So we'll be stopping here and moving to the next topic, which is sanitizing query strings. Okay, sanitizing means what? See, suppose if you want to here is the database server, and here you have some information, okay, like some data, and you have a query string here to fetch the data. Means select star from this database, and some things you want to fetch, you will be writing this and passing in the query. Okay, but what happens is sometimes you will be passing the wrong information. So that wrong information should not be able to reach here. Between only it should be detected, and it should be sent back that the query is wrong, because if wrong information goes and makes some changes here, that will be an issue, right? So that should not happen, and hackers can use that technique to fetch the passwords also, get the sensitive information. So that restriction should be put, right? So that should be doing, that is known as sanitizing query strings. Again, so that attack is known as injection attack. I guess it was written somewhere here. So it's SQL injection, okay, where the user tries to gain access to the underlying database server. Okay, that's what happens in the injection attack. And to make it more secure, what we'll be using is the process of checking the user input for incorrect or missing information is sometimes referred to as process of sanitizing user input. So we are just checking if the user has given us the correct input, and then we'll be processing the information, that is known as sanitizing query strings. Okay. And this is how you sanitize the query strings. If you just want in a place, like if you have a place here, you just want the integer values and the user has passed some alphabets that do not, need not want the alphabets to be present there. So before that, how you will check is that particular place, suppose that it is process id, at that time you will check if it is int. If it is int, then only it will continue processing, else it will display the error. Okay. In the same way, like get and post, we have the server array as well to get the information of the server, like server name, server software, and remote address. So for that, we'll be using the server array. Okay, and these are the important things which you need to know. We will be discussing each one by one. What is server request method? It is post or get. That's the first thing. Then server protocol, which protocol you are calling, HTTP/1.1, and the request time is this one, date is given here, and the HTTP agent, user agent is Mozilla 4.0. HTTP connection, how is the connection status, what is the HTTP accepting and encoding code, and HTTP server host, which is a host which is getting used. So these are the things which are passed into the HTTP web server. Okay, HTTP request header, this is the request header which will pass to the web server, and each of this information will be stored in the server array. Server array is like this, like get and post will be having multiple spaces for storing each of these information in these places. Okay, so server of server name will output the first one, which is request name. Yes, where is the request name? I'm not sure it is a request name, but the name will be output here. Then we have server address and port, everything will be stored accordingly, and that will be the output. Okay, so server information key is also the same thing. Requesting header information keys, to request the information of the header keys, we'll be using the HTTP user agent. One of the most used request header is user agent, which contains operating system. It's just that whatever we want to means request, will be just writing dollar underscore server, and what you want to request, that will be requesting. So the output will be shown to us. Okay, accessing the user string in the HTTP headers. First, what you have to do, get browser, server, HTTP user agent, and then browser. That will be stored. Whatever the value comes to, will be stored here. Then we'll be printing that value. Okay. And what else is there? HTTP refresh. So that's all what you need to know in the server arrays. You'll be storing the server information and outputting whenever you need and however you need. Okay. Files array, and you'll be storing the file information. Okay. So HTML required for file uploads. So you must ensure that HTML form uses HTTP post method, since transmitting a file through URL is not possible. It's obvious, right? Like if it's a big file in the query, you cannot pass the whole information because it will become very long query. So you have to use the post method. So post method will encode this into some characters, and that will be passed in the header. Okay. So these are some of the points regarding the HTML required for file uploads. And so this is the syntax. You have to include multi-part / form data, and method should be post, and type should be file. That's how you pass in the HTML to upload a file. And handling the file upload in PHP. To handle the file upload, we'll have to specify the name, type, temp name, error, and size. And these are the things which will be stored in the file array. We can access this information from the file array. So here's an example. If you have written this line of code, and type is equal to file, name is equal to file1, file1 is getting uploaded. So at that time we'll specify the URL here, and post multi-part form data. What it will do is it will make into unreadable format. So this is obviously unreadable format, and that will be more secure. And if you want to get more information regarding the file, we'll be using the file name here, and the files array will be having that, and name, type of file, temp error, temp file, error size, this will be displayed. Okay, so that's how you use the files array. And checking for errors, here are some like codes which you'll be using for checking for errors. Like if it is okay, no error is there, upload error okay, else if error is there, you'll get to know that as well. So here are some of the things which you can use for checking. The error code will be determining, means telling us if the file which I've uploaded is correct in that format or not. Like error okay, the size is correct, partial, no file, temp, directory, and so on. Okay, so you can go through it. Error codes in PHP. for the file upload taken from php.net. Okay, so you can go through it to get to know what are the different types of error codes. Okay, moving on, we have limiting the upload file via PHP and JavaScript. So this is just the same thing, nothing much. You'll have the file size array and you'll be using the different kinds of variables to get to know if the size which you have uploaded file is within the limit or not. And the same way you can check the different properties of that as well, like file is of the correct format or not, if it's of the different type, that all can be checked. Okay, limiting the type of file upload, yeah, this also just I told you what are the valid types that will be storing in an array, and you'll be checking if that type exists in that array or not. If it exists, you can send. If that type does not exist, and it means your file, if it is in jpg but in that array jpg is not stored, at that time you cannot pass this file. That check will be made here. So if it is available, it means if it is valid, it will pass in the if condition, else it will come into the else condition and will not pass. Okay, moving the file, how do you move the file is by using the move upload file function. If move upload file dot move to the destination will be passing the file from the what file you want to pass, and where is the destination will be specifying. So that's how you move the file. Reading and writing file, how do you read and write file in the C program and all? By using the f some functions that they write along with the f, you'll be using those functions, file read, file write, f binary. So those functions will be using here as well for reading and writing. Okay, so there are two methods for writing: stream access and all in memory access. Stream access will not store in the memory, while all in memory access will store into the memory. Okay, so stream access, yeah, f open you'll be opening the file, and f close you'll be closing the file. F get s you'll be using the get, means each character you'll be getting get ch, so those things you'll be using here as well. Okay, same way we'll be opening a file here, and we'll be keeping count of line is equal to 0, and f get s, f will be taking each character one by one, and then we'll be reading it, and then we'll be printing it if you want somewhere. Always storing that in an array, and we'll be closing f finally, opening reading line and closing. What is important from exam point of view. In memory file access means directly you are accessing from the memory and making the changes to the memory. Okay, for that you will be using these three functions: reads the entire file into the array, reads the entire file into string variable, write the contents of the string variable out to a file. Okay, means if the variable is stored in the memory, that will be using for fetching and writing it into a separate file. So here are some examples which are given, you can go through it. Okay, just the same thing, the syntax you need to know. If you know about how to write and read the file in other programming languages like C, you can easily doing this as well. Okay, it's not a big issue, you can go through it, very easy one. And that's all what is there in the chapter 1 of module 4. So we learned about the PHP arrays and the files reading and writing process, and passing the queries in get and post. So those were the important things I have mentioned, what all you need to keep in mind. And we'll be moving on to the chapter 2, which is classes and objects. Okay, so let's see what is class and objects. We all know what is class and objects. Class is a blueprint and object is the instance of it. So here are some important topics like the polymorphism, encapsulation, and the syntaxes for class and objects in PHP. Okay, so if you are already familiar with the PHP, means the class and object concepts and the OOP concepts in the other languages, this will be very easy for you. Okay, if you don't know that one, it will be very hard for you. Okay, so what is class and object, that only they have defined here. So this is the class, like a book should look like this, and what are the different books you write, that will be the objects. Okay, so for each of these things you'll have some properties like the number of pages, author and title, and the same goes here as well. So that's what the classes and objects and its attributes. You can have functions as well, like if I tell some functions of book, what are the functions that can be there in the book? Open book, read book, write some content to it, modify the content, delete, means delete some content, and close the book. So these are the functions that can be associated with that. So each class will have how many things? It will have data members and the data functions. Okay, each class and object will have these things. UML, what is UML? Is the unified modeling language. It's just the standard way of representing the class and objects. Okay, that's the unified modeling language. Okay, this is how you represent the relationship between class and objects in UML. Okay, So you'll write the class here, then write the class name, and these are the attributes. Okay, and plus indicates it's public. These things you need to know, because in the exam they have asked how to represent the things in the UML format. Okay, so you need to know these things, how they are written in the UML format. Okay, and what else we have? The same goes for the object as well. Here, as we had for the class, the same we'll be using for the objects as well. So here's the object things, object name and the variable name. You will be underlining the object names and the class name. So the Picasso is the object name and the artist is the class name. So you'll be using a semicolon in between, and these are the attributes which we have and the values of the attributes. Okay, here we had the attribute name and the type of attribute. Here we have the attribute name and the value of the attribute. Okay, so this is how you define the object, and this is the class which is in UML. Keep in mind, it can be asked in the exam, and different levels of UML detail. Okay, so these are the different levels of UML detail. You can either just write first name, last name and all, or you can write plus as well to denote the visibility mode. And here is the same goes for object as well. Okay, differences between server and desktop objects. In server and desktop object, there's the difference is that in desktop object it will be deleted. Whatever you write, it will not be lasting forever. It will just last as much as the query is concerned. In the server it will last, because in the server the things will be stored and you can use it later as well. Okay, so desktop application, it uses just one processor. For this one, all it will be overwritten. If you write this one, it will be written here. Then if you use this one, it will overwrite this one. If you use this one, it will overwrite this one. So what happens, it will not be storing the memory, but in the server memory everything will be having a different one. So whatever you make a request, that will be stored here separately, then it will be stored separately, and it will be stored here separately. That's the difference about the server and the desktop applications. So let's come to the classes and objects in PHP. Define a class. You will just write a class and artist, the class name here, and whatever the function means the data members you want, and the visibility mode as well. Then close it with a braces. That's how you define a class. And to make an object of it, you'll be writing the object name along with the $sign, then new the class name. Okay, then the properties are like you'll be defining the properties, right? So after you have created an object, you'll be writing Picasso, first name Pablo. Like you'll be just assigning the values. Instead, how we use in the dot operator for C and C++, here you'll be using the arrow operator. Okay, for each property we'll be accessing via an object name, we'll be assigning some values. Okay, then constructors, it means when you have created an object of the class type, and that time some value should be assigned to the attributes of it, right? So for example, here we have the class artist, and the variables from the previous lesson still go here. And if you want to assign these values here, when you just create the class, at that time some values will be assigned here. Like for example, death is equal to null. This is the default value which you have to assign when the object is created. Okay, so you'll be using a constructor for it. So by using a constructor, you have created an object of the class, so that the attribute death will be written as null. Okay, so if you don't use constructor, this will be kept as empty. That's the only difference. Okay, that is the constructor, and you can use these things as well. You can pass these values. The parameterized constructor, it is the parameterized constructor. You can pass the values. These values will be stored in the Picasso while you are creating that object. Okay, and methods means the functions. Okay, methods means nothing but the functions. So since in the classes we can have the data members as well as the data functions. So what are the functions you can define? You can define the function as follows: the visibility mode, the function name along with the brackets, and you have the opening and closing braces. Inside that, whatever you want to do, you can do here. That's how methods are defined, and you can write the updated class diagram. The functions will be written after drawing a line, and below the line will be writing the functions. So what is there in the functions? Construct, and you'll be writing the constructor definition, and you'll be having here no visibility mode because constructor is not visible in the class diagrams, and the plus is denoted for the public visibility, and you have the function name here, and the return type is string. Okay, so that's what it's written here in the methods. And visibility means if you want to make it private, public, or protected. So I guess protected is also here. So public means it's publicly available, private means it's just for the class and the object cannot access it. That's what is there. And to access those private variables, you will be using the functions, so that via the function will be accessing. So how the thing goes is, like if this is the object here and you have a private member here, directly by creating an object of it and directly accessing you cannot do, but you can define a function which uses this value, and you can make this function as public, and this function will be accessible by the public. So if you want to get this value, you will be passing through a function and getting this value. To get the value, you will be using getter method, and to set the value, means changing this value, you will be using the setter method. That is known as getter and setter methods. That also is an important question from exam point of view. We'll be discussing an example in the upcoming topic. Okay. Static members means, for example, if you're studying in a school, its name is ABC school, and that time what happens is, if you have created a class here and the school name is ABC, okay, for everyone who is joining the school, in their ID card the school name ABC should be written, isn't it, because they are of the same school. But it is very tedious to separate it at ABC for each person who joins the school. Instead, by default, the name of the school should be ABC. So you'll be using a static class. At that time, what happens is, if you store the static class as ABC, whatever the object is created of the class, at that time the name will be ABC. For example, the principal does not like the word ABC, he wants to change to apple. Okay, so what he will do is, he will cut this and write apple here, so all the changes will be updated in each of the ID card of student. Okay, that's what the static members and the static class, static functions is. So you can go through it, you will get to know, and whatever changes you make, that will be reflected to all the objects of it. Okay, for example, the function which they have given is artist count. So if you want to know how many students are there in your school, at that time you will be using a static member which is student count as 0. Whenever a student joins, what you will do is self artist count plus plus, in our case student count plus plus. So what happens is, if one person joins, the student counts will be 1, and that will be reflected among all the objects. Everywhere it will be 1 1 1. So if 2% join, it will be 2 2 2 2 2, then another person join 3 3 3 3, and so on. Okay, that's how the static members and static functions are used. Okay, these are just the same concepts which you have already learned in the C++ concepts, just we have to know the different syntax. Okay, that's the beauty of programming language. You just need to know the logic of it. Okay, the syntax you need not worry. In other languages, the syntax differs. If you know the logic, you can easily learn any language. Okay, so let's see what is the class constant. Constant means should remain constant in all the classes. That is the class constant. If you define some class constant, we'll be using the syntax in PHP, which is const earlier state, this one. So if you access this variable, you can just use it somewhere if you want, but you cannot change its value. That is the class constants. Okay, and object oriented design, here's come the important topics, which are the 3 topics which I told you: data encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. So let's discuss each one by one. Encapsulation means what? Encapsulating the data members and the data functions into the same thing. Like encapsulation, you can remember by using capsule. Capsule means what? You will be having a capsule here. Inside that, all the different ingredients of the medicine will be included here. So the same thing goes for here. The data members and the data functions will be encapsulated in a single space. That's what the class is, right? Because the class has both the data members as well as the data function. This is the class here, this is the data member, this is the data function. That is how the data encapsulation works. Okay, also you can call it as abstraction, because if you want to ride a car, you need not know how is the internal mechanical working of the car, right? Same thing goes for the class and object as well. To access a function and use it, you need not know how it is written, right? You'll be scrolling Instagram the whole night and all, but you will not know how is the algorithm behind it working, what are the data types used, and those things. But you'll be enjoying Instagram, right? So that's how the encapsulation works. You will be not knowing how it's working, what are the things in it, but you will be able to use it. Okay, that's known as data encapsulation. And here we'll be discussing about the getter and setter methods. Okay, that's what I was talking about, getter and setter methods. Getter means what? That private member, if you want to access, what you'll be using, you'll be defining a function via which you will be accessing. That function should be public. Setter is the same thing. You'll be setting a value. To set a value, you'll be using a function which is public, and you'll be setting the public private value, because using the class functions you can access the private members of the class, and you can change the values of it. Okay. So get first name, for example, if there is a class here and this class has an variable which is first name, which is private. Okay, so what we'll be doing, we'll be making a public function which is get first name, and we'll be creating an object of it, and we'll be accessing this function, because public functions can be accessed, obviously, right? So we'll be accessing this function, and via this function call, what we are doing is, public function get first name, and this will return this dot first name. This dot first name will access this one and it will return here. So we'll get this value here via function, and directly if you want to access, it will not be able to access because it's private. Okay, that is getter. If you just want to set the values, for example, if you call this function, pass the value 10, so 10 will be passed here and that name will be written as 10. So what's your first name? Your first name is 10, like that it will be stored. Okay, so that is how the getter and setter functions are used. And the same thing, just the examples are given for the static members and for the get earliest for the getter function, and for checking if it's a valid date or not, that's also we are checking here. So you can go through it. Many examples are there to strengthen your programming skills. You can go through it. And set is used like this. Okay, you will be passing a parameter here and that will be passed and it will be stored here. If it's invalid, it will not be stored, else it will be stored. Okay, that's how getters and setters are used. It's just for the private members, because in the public members you can directly access, you need not have the getter and setter functions. Only for the private members you need to have, because that are not accessible directly by the object. Okay, and this is the updated UML diagram. So what are the differences we can find here is the private members are represented as minus, the public members are represented as plus. And yeah, that's all. What's the difference between the previous diagram and this diagram. And using the encapsulated class, you can write a PHP code in this format. You'll have a HTML tag here and a PHP, include which class you want to include, and you can write the logic part here, and you can do the functions and you can close the HTML tag. Okay, that's how you use the encapsulated class. You understood, right? Encapsulation means getting the functions and the data into the same part, that is known as encapsulation. Inheritance means what you are getting the same type of data from the parent class into the child class and making some changes to it. For example, if you have a blue car and what you want to do is the blue car wants to be means you want just the blue car you want, but along with the blue car you want the half car to be red color. At that time you will not be making a new car which is totally blue and again you are making it as red. What you will be doing is you will be inheriting the blue car from the parent class, and then you will be making some changes to it. Okay, that's what happens in the inheritance. Okay, the same thing goes for the classes and objects as well. Here also you'll be inheriting from the parent class whatever the attributes you want to inherit, and we'll be making some changes to it whenever it's needed. Okay, so let's see the syntax for the class means the inheritance. So inheritance just uses the same syntax as the other programming languages, which is we'll be using the class name here which you want to extend, and this is the parent class name. See, in the every inheritance, first you will be writing the child class name and then you will be writing the parent class name. This is the child class name painting and the parent class name is art. Okay, that's how the inheritance works. And by UML diagram you'll be using like this. So this is the parent class, you'll be writing here, and since the child class is inheriting it, so you'll be writing arrow with a hollow triangle, and here you'll be writing the child class. So what are the extra things which you added that you will be writing? Okay, for example, these all things will obviously be inherited, it will be present here, so it's there's no point in writing the same things again. So instead what you'll be writing is what are the extra things other than this which you'll be finding here, that will be writing. Okay, like for example, name, artist, and related year here, created year. So what is the which year the artist had painted, that is known as created year. And along with that, if you want to add medium, then you'll be writing here, and medium will be added along with this. So what are the total things present in painting? Name, artist, created year, and medium. These all things are obviously present here. Along with that, this will also be added. Same thing goes for here as well. So along with all these functions present here, which, that will be taken here as well. Along with that, what you are adding, that you will be specifying here. A simpler version is as follows, the detailed version is this one. That's how the inheritance works. And same things, accessing the values to get the parent's name, you will use parent.getName. For example, if you are in this function but you want to access getName, what you will be using is parent, then double colon, and then you will be writing getName, whatever you want to access. This is known as scope resolution operator. That's how you access the parent name. And same goes for the variables as well. So what happens is, if you means in the parent class, so this is the parent class, right? In that one function is there, it is what? It is private. Okay, so if it is private function, you cannot access in the child class. So see, he is trying to access the parent private function from the child class. That is not possible. From the painting, you cannot access the parent init, because parent init is what? It is private. And the hash symbol which you are seeing here is protected. Okay, protected also cannot be accessed from the other parts. Okay, so it's just for ensuring the means the data members are in the private or protected category. Okay, and here is means this is the main class, an object of it, and this is the inherited members. Okay, this is how the class diagram for the inheritance looks like. Abstract class means what? It will just have the blueprint, it will not have any objects of it, and inside that you will have all the functions and the variables like the name, artist year, created, get year, artist, and get name. So to use this one, you will be extending this class and then you will be creating an object. You cannot directly create an object. First you have to inherit this class, then you'll be able to create an object. That is known as abstract class. Okay, so here's an example, you can go through it. And that's about the abstract class. And what else do we have? Okay, I guess that's all what is there in the inheritance. Yeah, that's all. You just have here the code part. So if I just go through it quickly, what's there in the code part is, the code part is starting from here. First we'll be including which classes we want. After you have included the classes, you can create the object by using the constructors here. After that is done, you will be writing the PHP HTML code. Inside the HTML code, you will be outputting whatever you want to output and taking the values from the user, and you'll be calling the respective functions inside the PHP tags. Okay, so here's the PHP tag. Inside that you will be using the classes whatever you defined and calling the functions also what you have defined. Okay, that's how you write the PHP code and use the functions in the PHP. Let's move on to polymorphism. What is polymorphism? Using the same symbol in different places in different contexts, like differently. What I mean is, like if you write 1 plus 1, it will be 2. If you write a plus b, it will be ab. Like that, it will be differing, right? So that is known as the same thing we'll be using in different places differently. That is polymorphism. Here also we'll be using polymorphism in different places, different contexts. How we'll be using that, I'll be showing you. Like for example, if you have a parent class here and you have a child class here. Okay, so in the parent class you'll have some functions defined. You have in the child class also some functions will be defined. If you are using this parent class to means do some operation, how it is defined, in that way it will be performing. And if you use a child class, how it is defined, that in that way it will be performing. So the latest operation will be performed. Okay, means if you have made some changes here, what changes you have made, that will be performed here. But if you have not made any change, the previous one will be taken into consideration. That's how the polymorphism works. Same overridden methods are used on each. Means if you have defined some method in the parent class, inherited it, and you have defined it in a different way here, so that is overriding. That's what's the main concept in polymorphism. Okay, so just the code is also given here for different instances. You will get the different outputs. Like for example, see here, for the first one, the parent class you got like this output. For the child class you got like this output. Okay, I guess this is the parent class and this is the child class, because medium was defined in the child class, I guess. So this is how the output differs according to if it's from the parent or the child. Okay, so this is known as polymorphism, using the same thing in differently in different contexts. Okay, so here's the code part, you can go through it. Now if in the exam they ask, you have to write a small code snippet for it as well. Okay, what is dynamic dispatching? Dynamic dispatching means seeing the context and deciding whether the parent function should be given or the child function should be used. Okay, that's known as dynamic dispatching. Interface means what? Interface means you'll be having an interface here and you'll be having some buttons here, and whatever buttons you want, you can click it and do the functionality associated with that. That is known as interface. Now in classes and objects, what the interface is, for example, if a person is there, that person, let me define the buttons here: football, studies, speech, giving good speeches, and writing good books. So this how interface is defined. In that, different functions are defined, and you want to make a class which just requires these two functions. So you'll be extending the interface via these two functions only. Like if he is good in studies and writing books, you'll be creating a class which is just associated with these two things. That is how the interfaces work. Okay, so interface viewable, whatever the functions you want you can contain in it. You have to use implement instead of extends. Extends is just for the inheritance, and you will be using implement to get the functions associated with that. Okay, and after you have implemented it, it is compulsory for you, whatever the functions are defined here, you have to write the definition of it. Okay, it's just a name written here. In the interface the function will not be defined, just the name will be written. In abstract classes the functions definition will also be there. That's the difference between interface and abstraction. Same goes here as well. There are a few examples, you can go through it. Runtime class and interface determination. So art is there, this is a parent class, and child class is painting, movie and song. And if you create an interface out of these two, you'll get these two things. If you create an interface out of these two, you'll get these two things. Means how you have defined the interface, what are the things you have taken, that is this specified here. That's what interface is about. You just need to know the class and object and the different OOP concept, which is polymorphism, encapsulation and inheritance, very thoroughly. And the examples, if they ask, you have to write that. Okay, so that's that marks the end of the chapter 2, which is the class and objects in PHP. Okay, so let's move to the third chapter, which is the error handling. This is the half chapter is there, it's chapter 12 I guess. So you have to find out where is the chapter 12. So this chapter 11.8. okay, this is the chapter 12. If I show you the summary, this is divided into two parts, the chapter. The first part is this one, how to handle the error and exception. We just have this much in the syllabus, and this means out of the syllabus scope. Okay, just have to discuss what are these, what are the different types of errors you need to know, what is exceptions and how to handle those errors, how to define that errors. And yeah, that's pretty much it, what is there in this topics. So let's discuss what is other things you need to keep in mind. What is error? First of all, error means we know if something goes unexpected, then what is to be expected, it is known as error. Exception means you will have means it's not the same thing as the error. Exception means it's the same thing as the error, but you'll be handling it in a slightly different manner. Okay, that's known as exception. Means what happens other than the normal, that is exception. And error means what you have expected, like these are the errors that can happen. Okay, if you go through the syntax and all, you'll get to know more clearly what I mean. Okay, so types of error, what are the different types of errors? Expected errors, the normal errors which you face. Warnings means it's just that if you have data type defined but you have not assigned any value, there might happen an error during the runtime, that is the warning. Fatal error means what, you have used a code or something that can means terminate the program because further running is not possible using that code. Okay, so that is the fatal errors. These are the three types of errors. Okay, and some of the errors can be like if you have URL but you have not means, see here what I mean is, some of the expected errors can be as follows. If you have a form here, in the form nothing is there, you just click on submit. So if nothing is there or some misinformation is there that you click on submit, that is an error, right? Because if this information goes into the URL will be empty, and empty URL will be trying to fetch something, and that will not be possible. That is an error. Okay, so for checking that, we can use is set if the ID is set or not. If the ID is set, it will return true. If it is not set, it will return false. In the URL, it will check if those things are set or not. Okay, same thing goes for is empty also, it will check if it is empty or not. By using these two functions, you can check if the URL is valid or not. Okay, that's how you handle one type of error. And is empty is numeric, you can check that types as well, numeric or what types. Exception means refers to the objects are of the type, refers to objects that are of a type exception, which are used in conjunction with the object with the try catch block. Okay, so exception is just used if you have an error, except what you have to do means in that try catch block, what happens if there is an error at that time, what you have to do, how to handle it, that is known as exception. Okay, so exception is a class which we will be using in the PHP to handle the errors. So let's see what are the different types of errors. Flags, error reporting, display errors and log errors. By the name itself you can understand error reporting is the reporting of the errors. In PHP, display errors is just the errors which are directly displayed on the screen, but the log errors is that errors which are written into the log. Okay, so these are the different type of errors. Let's see an example for each of these. Error reporting, it can also be set within a PHP file. All the possible levels of error reporting are defined by predefined constants. So there are some constants which you'll be using for reporting the errors. And display errors, to display the errors you can set the flags as 0 or means other values. To fetch different type of error, because different type of errors can come. You can set which type of error you want to see by using the values, and here's the descriptions. Okay, the log errors, you will be setting the log file where the errors will be stored. So here we have the error log, and that will be stored .log. So in the log file you will have all the errors. Okay, you can also email the errors to the developers if they prefer. Like if there is a bug found, you want to get an email in your website if the bug is found, you can build in the PHP as well. And PHP error and exception handling. So let's see what is the exception handling. Okay, there are two kinds of exception handling using the procedural programming and the object oriented programming. In procedural programming, you'll be using the if else conditions for handling the errors. Error happens, what you need to do. Okay, and in the object oriented exception handling, what you'll be using is you'll be using a try catch block, because in try catch block you have the exception object. By using the object, you can output the get message, get line, get trace, where exactly the error has happened, when it has happened, why it has happened, and what is the error. Those things can be giving things can give us greater details of the error, right? But the procedural programming language will just output it's an error. Okay, that's the difference between procedure and object oriented errors. An important question from exam point of view. And throwing an exception is also the same thing. Here we'll have the throw new exception. This just for the different context, we'll be using different types of errors. Like for example, sometimes we'll be using throwing an exception, or sometimes we'll be using try catch, sometimes we'll be using if else conditions, and so on. Okay, and the combinations of that can be used as well. Okay, so make sure you go through the syntax and keep in mind, and be able to write the code syntax in case they ask how the errors can handle using try catch and throwing, and the if else condition, procedural error handling, and the object oriented exception handling. These things you need to know. Okay, and custom errors and exception handling. So to handle an exception, custom exception, see, by default it will be a standard. Like if the error has come, this will be the things to output. If you want like custom things to be output, like only when and how it was, how was the error, that time you will be using defining a function called my exceptional handler. He will be passing the exception and modifying it and returning the means customized error message, and that can either means log to save in the log file, or you can email it. Okay, that's what the custom error and exception handler is. Here's the syntax, you can go through it. And yeah, that's all what is there in the module 4 of web development. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.